Todd McFarlane Spawn, the video game, was released for the Super Nintendo in late 1995, and I believe I'd picked up a used copy for about $11 in a pawn shop the following year. I didn't really know what to expect because I'd read the comics, and Spawn was a title that embraced really dark themes and plot, and the Super Nintendo really wasn't known for inviting things like that into their game library. So I was a bit surprised to find out that the story in the game revolved around children being kidnapped by someone called the Mad One, and Spawn having to go all the way to hell to save them. In Spawn, you play as Al Simmons, who used to be a CIA operative before he was betrayed and murdered while on a mission by his partner, and he went straight to hell. Al wanted to see his wife again, so he struck a deal with Malbolgia, who is the equivalent of the devil in Spawn's universe, in exchange for his soul. He was given powers of a finite amount and sent back to Earth. He then discovered that 5 years had passed and his wife was now remarried to his friend Terry, and that they had a daughter named Cyan. Isn't that a kick in the ass? Cyan is among the children that have been abducted, and it's up to Spawn to get her and the other kids back. The game is made up of 17 levels, and the variety of locations featured is actually pretty good. There are a ton of bosses, including characters straight from the comic books like Overkill, the Redeemer, and Violator. There are cutscenes in between stages and they let you know what's going on and also where Spawn's going to end up next. Getting all the way through hell in this game is not a super easy task. Spawn uses magic as a power, lives, and continue system. The magic you have in the game is gauged by a numerical meter shown in the top right hand corner of the screen. Spawn has super moves such as healing, fireballs, teleporting, and also super strong punches. The problem is that all of these moves use up the energy that Spawn has, and once the meter runs out, he's done for. It's a really good idea to reserve as much energy as possible for the end of the game because that's when things get really crazy. Al also has a lot of regular moves, and some of them really come in handy. He has light and heavy punches, as well as kicks, slides, glides, and even a block. Finding out what works best in what situation takes some time and patience, but I didn't feel too overwhelmed with most of the battles in the game once I got the hang of things. If there's one complaint I have though, it's just that Spawn's controls are kind of hit and miss. Al can wall jump, and very early on into the game you have to adapt to this maneuver in order to progress past a certain point where snipers are trying to take you out. The problem is that this feels frustrating until you get the hang of it, and it really should be much tighter in control. Also, doing some of the special moves can be frustrating, especially ones that you need to pull off in a life or death situation. The graphics are pretty good in my opinion and capture certain details very well. While the enemies are kind of cookie cutter, Spawn looks really good, and little things like how his cape flutters in the wind while he glides after a jump really stand out. The levels also have a pretty nice variety, even though some are really better than others. The difficulty is balanced for the most part, but I remember getting to a section that had me cursing a lot and took a while for me to get past. The enemies in this level were assholes and could destroy Al's life bar in just a few hits. Hit detection can also be a bit wonky, and it leads to baddies getting some really cheap hits in at times. Honestly though, I can say I found Spawn to be much more forgiving than a lot of other games at its time, and I had enough fun to keep going and see what happened next. Spawn may be an average platforming action game, but if you're a fan of the comics and like 16-bit titles, definitely check Spawn out. It's not the most polished game in the Super NES world, but in my opinion it's fun enough to play for at least an evening and see what you think.